I'm Jacqueline Smith.
I'm Cassie Beisel. I work for the Melanoma Research Foundation. Jackie is one of our amazing board members, and I work in the advocacy department. I think I had Jackie last year. I had you at my Hill Day, and you talked about some of the initiatives we were going to do and some of the policy. And being a stage 3 survivor and you being a 2-time stage 3 survivor, we were really able to connect, right? I mean, one thing with melanoma, let's talk about the stigma really quickly. And so I think, you know, I'm very pale, and you are obviously a person of color.
You're one of the poster children for melanoma.
Yeah, I'm the poster child, and you're the stigma, you know, so, I mean, I'm a stigma as a young adult because, you know, normally it's an old person's cancer, but what I think people don't know is that it's the number 2 most diagnosed cancer in adolescents.
Right.
And it's the first and second leading cause of cancer death in women 25 to 30.
That's what I was getting
and we're
ready to
both
say.
young adults, but you're a young adult that, you know, of color.
Sure, like I felt marginalized for many reasons, kind of in the greater cancer community, being diagnosed with melanoma, where everyone thinks, oh, this is something that just hits fair-skinned, middle-aged, or younger, or older, but Caucasian women, people in general. And here I am, definitely not fair-skinned.
No.
Right?
And then the other stigma is that, so I've had 2 other cancers, and a lot of people think that it's related to my treatment of interferon, and it turns out it's not. So my second cancer was acute lymphoblastic leukemia with a Philadelphia positive chromosome.
Right, so you've got a lot going on.
I do, but we both do. But even after that, most recently I was diagnosed with another form of skin cancer, which was squamous cell carcinoma. And it was really far up on my thighs where the sun does not shine. And normally that's connected to HPV, but when I tested it, I wasn't HPV positive. So I had Mohs surgery on there. But I mean, even as young adults, you know, even though we're done with our cancer, we're not really done with it, are we? And all these other cancers, amazing. But I think, you know, especially as us being young adults, I always found that there was a lack of resources, such as like fertility resources. I mean, there's 178,000 Americans that are to be diagnosed with melanoma in 2018, which is a large number of people. Not enough of them know about, I think, what melanoma is, and kind of the complications it can cause during your life. I mean, you get your lymph nodes removed because a lot of times the first spreading point is the lymph nodes, right?
But I think another thing when you talked about fertility, like even now, there's not much support for women to have their eggs banked, where there's more for men with having their sperm. So like, I think that's something we need to look at too, is what are the resources out here for young women?
Exactly.
Because for me, I wanted to at least have the option to preserve my fertility. And I would tell my doctors, it's not enough for me to just survive. And I remember before going into radiation being told, well, we don't need to worry about what's going to happen to your ovaries or your eggs because we just need to make sure you survive. But once I survived, now what?
You had radiation for your
I
treatment?
did. I had radiation.
For your melanoma?
I had my lymph nodes, the pelvic and inguinal nodes removed. Then I had the interferon, and they paused my interferon treatment, and I had 6 months of radiation. So I had pelvic radiation.
Wow.
And for me, I tell everyone that was like the loneliest 26 seconds of my life. I remember laying on the table, counting the red dot 13 times. It would come here, and then the beam would, you know, reposition, and it was another 13, and I always just felt so alone and isolated in that moment.
You know, I had radiation along to prep me for my bone marrow transplant that I had for my leukemia. No, not with my melanoma. I just had the interferon and the full, you know, they removed all of my lymph nodes in my right arm, but I remember also the very isolated feeling. I had full body radiation, and you know, I have the many tattoos, the many red dots.
I call them the prison tattoos. They do it with
it's just like your scars. It's just like your scars. They're your trophies, right? And unfortunately, you and I have collected a lot of trophies over the years, and it's hard to think that we're done constantly looking over our shoulders, especially, you know, when we have more things that are happening because of our, you know, with treatment getting better and better, our survivorship is longer and longer.
So now we're getting to see what long-term effects of these treatments are.
Exactly.
Where we didn't have that info before.
Exactly, definitely, yeah.
So I think something for me that was very important when I was transitioning into what I considered survivorship was to just thrive in life. And I think, you know, I remember one of my neighbors said, cancer is the shadow that always follows you.
Yeah.
And I was very angry when he told me that, but I learned it's somewhat true. Like, I cannot divorce myself from cancer, but I refuse to be a hostage to the disease. And I've learned to kind of use it to empower me. And I mean, it's definitely shaped the way my life is gone. My dissertation focuses on melanoma survivorship in young women. All of my advocacy work is in cancer. But I don't let myself become like worried and terrified to live and enjoy. So I don't know. What about you? What are you thinking?
I think, you know, so cancer smacked me down in the middle of when I was supposed to be thriving in my career.
Right.
And I sat there in bed, unable to walk at times, watching my friends and my family thrive around me.
Yes,
and I
similar.
always thought to myself, am I ever going to be able to get back? Am I going to be successful? Am I going to have a life where I can be a part of functioning society and make a difference? And I always thought no. And then I started working with the Melanoma Research Foundation, and I met wonderful people like you, and I saw the difference that I could make within a community by sharing my story. And I think the message I would want people like us to know, people that are dealing with cancer and watching their loved ones go through it, is that it's okay to cry.
Right.
It's okay to be unsure, but there are people out there that love you. There are people out there that are going to support you. And if they're not, then there are people out there who do want to provide resources for you.
Find
And
those
just
people.
exactly, and don't give up. Like, you have a story, share it, because your story, it's going to be a ripple impact. Your story is going to bring up another story and another story until everyone's sharing their stories, and it's going to make change happen.
Right.
And I think that people often get down on themselves and think that I'm just one person, what am I going to do? But I think together we can do everything.
And one other thing, I remember someone asking me, I was in radiation, and this lady said, well, do you think you'll ever be yourself again? And that was a big fear. And I know, and I mean, we've talked about this before with body image, and you're looking at yourself and seeing all of these changes, and then you have this fear kind of looming over cancer. And for a while, I wondered, like, will I ever be me? And now, I mean, again, it's 10 years later, but I really do think that I'm a better me. And,
Exactly.
you know, first I used to think it was kind of cliched when people said that, but like, I'm stronger in different ways. I've built more networks, and networks I never would have been able to tap into.
Yeah.
And also develop different skills. And so I look at myself now, and I'm really proud of where I am. And like, for me, I want to encourage other people, like, don't get down. You might have moments, like you said, where you're even sad, and allow yourself to feel that way, but know that you have to get up and keep fighting. And I remember one of my surgeons said, okay, today, you know, you were diagnosed with your recurrence today. You're allowed to feel sad today. Tomorrow, only 50% of the day.
Right.
And the third day, you've got to get up and keep living. Like,
Right.
you can't just give up. And so that's my thing. Like, don't give up, don't give in. You know, the sun will shine.
Exactly.
Again, so.
Exactly.
Yeah.